Hey guys, today I'm going to be going over stagflation. So I did a video on inflation a couple months back, and basically stagflation is inflation but a lot worse. And it has to do with inflation. So getting right into it, stagflation occurs when there's a period of high inflation, high unemployment, and low economic growth. So yeah, those are the three things that have to happen for a period to have stagflation. It's high inflation, high unemployment, low economic growth. And one of the frequent scenarios that stagflation occurs in, just one of them, there are obviously many different factors that influence economic outcomes. But for stagflation, just getting into one specific scenario. So if the Federal Reserve injects stimulus or prints a lot of money, that would be a scenario where there's high inflation. So that covers the first aspect. When inflation is high, sometimes prices can outpace wages. So price increases rise faster than wages increase. And in this situation, then consumers would buy less because their purchasing power decreases. And when consumers buy less, companies lose revenue because they aren't getting as many sales. And then when they don't get these sales, with their revenue decreasing, they would have to lay off workers to compensate for that. So that's where the high unemployment aspect comes in. And then with that high unemployment and with companies and manufacturers laying off workers, they would produce less. So the production would decrease, and that would mean the economic output would slow down, which is the contributor to low economic growth. So this is just one scenario where all three of these factors would be involved, and that would basically produce a period of stagflation. And then in the US, one of the times that we did have stagflation, the main time, was in the mid 70s. It was when the oil embargo happened. So basically what happened was OPEC, so the Organization for Petroleum Exporting Countries, banned oil sales to the US because the US supported Israel during the Yom Kippur War. So the U.S. and Israel are allies. The U.S. and a couple other countries as well were supporting Israel during the war. Israel has always been basically at war with the Arabic countries around Israel. So that's what the war was during the mid 70s. The U.S. was supporting Israel, and the OPEC countries didn't like that, and those countries decided to put sanctions on the U.S. So the embargo for oil, which means they banned all oil sales to the US. So we didn't get any oil from those countries, which are basically the biggest producers of oil over there, and they usually would ship us that oil. And since the embargo was going on, they did not ship the US any oil. So basically, there was a shortage of oil in the US during this time period, during these years here. Because of that shortage, prices skyrocketed, and basically the government had to stimulate the economy through stimulus money printing, that stuff. So it led to high inflation, and a lot of manufacturers obviously are going to use oil. So with this oil shortage and with the high oil prices, manufacturing output was decreased, which would be causing higher unemployment and overall low economic growth. So that's one scenario in history where stagflation did occur. Obviously that was some time ago, but that is just a prime example of how it happened in the US. So yeah, that was just a brief rundown of kind of what happens with a period of stagflation, and I hope you guys enjoyed.